The Leica Sl2-S would be one of the most popular cameras today if it weren't for these two things, the price and Hey, what's up? My name's Lucas. I am a photographer and filmmaker based out of West Michigan. Welcome to my channel. I've been using the Leica Sl2-S for over a year and I use it almost every single day, and I wanted to give a more in-depth, more long-term review of the things that I like about this camera, what I don't like about the camera, and who I think this camera is for. So is the Leica Sl2-S going to just blow away the spec sheets? No, I mean, the camera came out in 2019 and it was good then, but it still wasn't at the top of the spec sheets in 2019. But now, almost 4 years later, it's still just kind of middle of the road if you look at it purely based on specs. There's going to be cameras that shoot a lot more higher megapixels than it. There's going to be cameras that have higher resolutions than it, shooting 6K, 8K, all those things. But really, the world is still in 4K, so that's not a huge deal to me. But one of the things that I love about shooting on Leica system is that they don't just churn out cameras. They make them with intention. They're actually improving and building upon the cameras that they currently have out. So they put out fairly regular firmware updates, and some of the things that they've added to this camera specifically through firmware has been external raw recording, 10-bit internal recording, face and eye detect autofocus. Just those three things completely changed the way that a camera is used. So it's been really cool to work with a company that's not just focused on making a new camera and putting all of the new features in the new one, but also adding them to the current models that are out. They design with intention so that they don't come out with a new camera with a button on it that should have been a button in the first place when it came out. Canon R6 Mark II. It is a high cost in the front end, but the actual cost of ownership isn't as much over a long period of time. Let's talk about image quality, because at the end of the day, the image quality is the most important thing on a camera, because if it can't take good photos, then it's not a good camera. The Leica Sl2-S takes phenomenal images. The ISO performance on this thing is so good. I don't even really think about cranking the ISO. I've shot things up to 50,000 ISO that I have delivered, and they look great. I've talked about it before. Digital noise on these images is really easy to remove, and it's also somehow flattering, which I don't fully understand, but I'm here for it. I traveled with this camera to Israel earlier this year, and honestly, the SL2 was a backup to my Sl2-S, because when you're traveling, there's so many different variables and you're shooting from basically sunrise to sunset, and you want to be able to make sure that you've got any lighting situation covered. And so I used my Sl2-S and it travels great. Straight out of the camera, the images look phenomenal. I do edit my photos. I'm not a Leica purist, but the DNG files that this camera produces are amazing. It's really forgiving in the shadows, so I always underexpose my images. And just like a lot of digital cameras, specifically Leica's digital cameras, the highlights, if you clip them, they are toast. They're completely gone. I actually use the auto ISO mode semi-frequently, but I use the highlight weighted metering so that it protects those highlights, because I know that I can draw back all the other information in the image, but I cannot get back the highlights. You can't really talk about image quality without talking about the lenses that you're able to put on this camera. I love being able to adapt my M lenses to it, and I know a lot of the lenses are out of people's budgets. Honestly, the camera's out of a lot of people's budgets. The lenses are definitely out of my budgets, the native Apo primes. But with the Leica L-mount Alliance, it does make it a little bit easier to pick up some lenses, being able to use Panasonic or Sigma lenses on it. Personally, I've tried the Sigma lenses. I haven't tried any Panasonic lenses yet. And I had the 105 macro and the 2470, and I ended up selling the 105 macro and returning the 2470 just because the autofocus is, if you can believe it, a little bit worse with the Sigma lenses. And so I ended up picking up the Leica 2470 secondhand, and I've been really enjoying that lens. So now the elephant in the room when we talk about autofocus and the Leica Sl2-S. As far as for images, it's passable. It's definitely not gonna win any awards, but it is contrast detect autofocus. It's what a lot of cameras have had in the past, and it's fine. If it's low light, you're not focusing on anything. Let's just get that out of the way. But if you've got a decent lighting situation, it works. But I would like to be able to add some more lenses, some more native lenses to my kit, specifically the Apo lenses. I'm really interested in that, but it is encouraging, whatever your take is on the new 35 and the 50 from Leica, it is encouraging that they are creating lenses, and I really enjoy seeing that in the system. As for the lenses that I use with this camera, I have the only autofocus lens being my Leica 2470. I have my 28 and 50 Leica M lenses, and then I've got a Leica R lens kit that I use specifically for video, sometimes stills, but mostly video. And video is such an important aspect when it comes to a camera for me, because I'm a hybrid shooter and I need a camera that can shoot photos just as well as it can shoot video. And I've got to say, no other hybrid camera has impressed me the way that the Leica Sl2-S has impressed me. I shoot this camera side by side with my Works Red Komodos, and it holds its own. Now, it doesn't have the same dynamic range as the Komodos do, but it is a very pleasing image. I'm really impressed with the image quality that comes out of these video files and the editability of L-Log. Obviously, it's going to take a little bit of extra editing to do in the video files. If you need help with that, I can pin a video up here that has my workflow on L-Log editing. But I also love having the ability to record 4K, 12-bit, 422 ProRes RAW externally. I still shoot 4K 10-bit 422 internal just because it is ProRes RAW and I edit on Premiere Pro, so I don't really get access to all of the added benefits of filming in RAW, but the 12-bit is really quite stunning. So as for lens performance with the in video mode, I really mostly use my Leica R lenses on it because I love the look that they give, but I do have one autofocus lens, and for the most part, it's pretty unusable. I really only use the autofocus in a situation like this, where I've got good lighting, but also sometimes I'll use the follow focus mode to do product shoots and stuff like that. But ultimately, I end up using manual focus on almost every video shoot that I do. The Leica Sl2-S would be one of the most popular cameras if it weren't for the price and for the poor autofocus performance. But honestly, the autofocus performance doesn't really bother me that much. I'm manual focusing most of the time anyways. One of the things that is quite frustrating about the SL2S when it comes to recording video is because there's no dummy batteries and it uses USB-C charging, it doesn't really have a great way to connect a V-mount directly to the camera to power it through the V-mount. I've tried certain different things. I literally just picked up a Condor Blue, 65 watt USB to USB-C PD adapter so that I could try and see if it does it. And it doesn't keep it running, so I don't know if it's my V-mount or what, but that is definitely something to consider, is the integration of certain accessories aren't going to be as readily available because it's not as used of a camera. But there are manufacturers that are finally making cages for it. Condor Blue just came out with one, and I use the 8-sin cage, and I've been really enjoying that. This is one of the most beautiful cameras I've ever used. It's almost as beautiful as an M camera, just in its own way, but there's definitely no other cameras, hybrid mirrorless cameras on the market that look like this. On my recent trip to Israel, all I did was just put a little gaff tape over the red dot and it kind of blends in. I didn't really have anybody that I knew of paying attention to my camera, which was good. I didn't want people to in that situation. But when I leave the house with my silver M10, I know people are going to talk to me. They're going to be interested in the camera. They're going to ask me questions about it. But I haven't had that much with the SL2S, but I have had clients comment on how beautiful the camera is, which I think is a plus because they're noticing that you stand out. I have used this camera for client work, headshots, travel, personal, studio, product, music videos, lots of different things, and it is always up for the task and it always performs really, really well. The only time that I had like a frustration using the camera was using it for, I shot a wedding last fall, and the only thing that frustrated me was the autofocus. I had the Sigma 105 macro lens on it, and I ended up turning autofocus on that and manual focusing with that. But all of the shots that I ended up using manual focus on, I hit focus on, and it was really a breeze and really enjoyable. But I was definitely frustrated when using the autofocus on the Sigma 105 in that situation, in a more run and gun situation. But one of the things that I like about shooting with manual focus is you're more in control, and it seems like you just have a little bit more intention when you're shooting. Obviously, this camera isn't for everyone. I think if you are a photographer or filmmaker that relies heavily on autofocus, then you're gonna have to steer clear from this. But if you're looking for something a little bit different, something that's gonna help you stand out from the crowd, I think this is an amazing camera to do that. I buy all of my gear used, so you can find it for really good prices actually online. You just have to do a little bit of shopping and be kind of particular about what you're looking for. Honestly, you look at other cameras with similar specs and you're gonna be spending a similar price on those as well. The thing that's really gonna get you though is the accessories, the Leica accessories, like batteries, chargers. Those come with a heavier price tag than other things do, but it's not a big deterrent to me because I think it's worth it using it in this system because it is such a unique, special camera that gives you a great look on your footage. So all in all, I see myself sticking with this camera system for a while. I see myself sticking with these cameras for a while. I don't anticipate getting the SL3 when it first comes out. I'll probably end up holding onto these and waiting for the price to come down and buying it on the used market. But I am excited about this system. I am excited about L mount. I think that Leica is going to continue to push and innovate with this system. I do have a wish list that I hope to see on the SL3. If you're interested in that, I'll pin that video right up here too, and you can check that out. But for now, I am gonna save and wait and invest in L mount lenses. Specifically, I've got my eye on a couple of the Apo primes and potentially the 24-90 to have, and then use my 24-70 as a backup lens. But for now, just waiting and enjoying the system that I have. So that's just about it. If you've made it to this point, thank you so much. Please like and subscribe. It really does make a huge difference. And I will see you in the next video.